Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the best place to get your car United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
It's back down to earth for a bump for United as they follow up that first win under Milan with defeats to Shrewsbury and Mansfield. We ask if the Blues can cling on to the transfer window in January, whether that will make any difference, and look ahead to this weekend's big clash with Stevenage. Once again, got there on the third attempt, didn't we, Mike?
Yeah.
For those wondering, but have not been listening in recent weeks, we've had a few issues with doing the introductions, basically in the new style that we've done it this season. And what we've noticed is there's a little bit of a gap between when I say I'm Lee Rooney and then either Mike or Dan says I'm Mike or Dan McLennan. And the funny thing is that Mike had pointed this out, that he'd noticed it with Dan, and then said, "Oh, no issues of mine." And then every time he'd done it now, I'm like, there is a gap, and it really was doing my head in. I was doing the intro, so we got there in the end, didn't we? That's the important thing. Yeah, back down to earth of a bump, I think, is the correct decision for the last week, isn't it, Mike? It's a bit of a reality check on things.
Yeah, exactly. It was depressing listening on Tuesday, like, it really was. I think you said yourself, if Dean Wallen can sound depressed, it's saying something.
How dare they make such a great man so downcast and jaded. Disgraceful. But there you go. Well, let's get straight into it, Mike. News-wise, there's only really one little bit, isn't there, in terms of things that have happened at Brunton Park this week. That's the festive period away tickets have gone on sale. So the club have announced deals for the festive away trips to Salford and Scunthorpe. Fair to say there's a contrasting price structure for the two clubs, isn't there? Well, tickets for the Salford game can be bought for just £15. I mean, that's for seating and standing as well. I don't think there's any difference between the two. The trip to Scunny will set back Blues fans an eye-watering £23 for adults. If you pay on the day, it's £25 as well. That's astonishing for League 2 football. 25 quid. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. And, for me, being hungover on New Year's Day, I just want to throw up. And been in Scunthorpe, I'd want to throw up. And playing £25 for League 2 football would make me want to throw up. So probably not going to go to that one.
No, I think it's fair to say. We did it a couple of seasons ago, didn't we? I think it was about my fourth or fifth visit, and it doesn't get any better, does Glanford Park, I'm afraid. It's weirdly, it's one of the worst away. Considering it's only, 30 years old, it's one of the worst away events going. The concourse is a disgrace. I mean, how they ever got away with building something that small. It's ridiculous, but there you go. So yeah, if Scunthorpe's not one we're likely to do, I'm going to be doing Salford. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to make it yet, Mike. Are we?
No, I'll be working for that one. But I think it was a bit rubbish of the club just sort of saying they're on sale now. There was no sort of,
Yeah, because Salford's one you'd think they'd have a bit of anticipation for. It's our first ever visit as fans. Obviously, the club played there last season, but with no fans there. I'd imagine it's probably likely to be a sellout. The Christmas games always tend to be popular. But to just announce it literally on the day that they're going on sale, not great in my opinion, but hey ho, there you go. I've got my tickets, so I'm not really that bothered now. There you go. Right, let's get on to it, Mike, because we've got two matches to review this week. Yes, so Carlisle United 1, Shrewsbury Town 2, and Mansfield Town 1, Carlisle United 0. Very much back to reality for United this week, as the league win over Walsall and the victory in the trophy we don't talk about was followed up with two consecutive narrow defeats in the FA Cup and League. I mean, when you look at Shrewsbury and you think the higher division, you'd expect them to probably come out on top. United really failed to offer any threat in the defeat of Midfield Mill in midweek, and it was only results elsewhere that kept them out the bottom two. At one point, we were dropping back into the bottom two, weren't we? But I think Oldham conceded late on, and that pushed them back into it. The most depressing thing, though, is the fact that Shrewsbury got a money-spinning tie, and of all the ties to get for me and you,
I know,
Liverpool away.
It was always going to happen, wasn't it? Always going to happen.
Especially as, Mike, go on, tell the listeners what you did, what curse you put on it.
Oh, well, I booked third round weekend off work, so it's all my fault. I take full responsibility for the defeat. So
as you should. We should have banned you from doing the pod this week for that, really. But Dan wasn't available, so I didn't have much choice, did I? Yeah, I mean, it's a huge opportunity missed in that sense for the club, losing out on a potential bit of extra revenue in January that could really make a difference. The major concern now, though, has got to be points in the league, hasn't it? United, the problem is we just look toothless, don't we? And nothing has changed since Keith Millen comes in. We still look a toothless side. We look like a side that doesn't know how to score goals.
That's the thing. I think they were sort of saying after the Mansfield game that there's positives there, and you can say it's unlucky if you're sort of an optimist, but it's a trend, and it's sort of the thing that's happening every week, and there've been positives there. Isn't enough to keep you up. You need to be actually getting points on the board.
This is the thing, though, as well. Like, you can keep saying that, but we're stuck in a rut, and getting out of a rut's very, very difficult. It takes something special for a manager to actually be able to get a team out of a rut regularly. I mean, for all his criticisms, Greg Abbott, when he was manager, when we had a bad run of results, he'd always be able to dig out a result every now and then get us on another good run.
Yeah.
He always had a habit of doing that. We saw it with Chris Beach last season. He was not capable of doing that. He was great when things were going well, but as soon as things started to go wrong, he found it incredibly difficult to get that team back winning again. Keith Millen's coming in a difficult situation because we are on such a horrendous run. To try and turn things around is difficult. It's tough, and
see
how he will.
Some people have been getting on Millen's back already and questioning, like, I've heard a few comments of should he go in January if things don't improve. But for me, the difference that you can see now from Beach is like clearly visible. I think he just needs time to bring in his own players and do a little bit more.
We'll come on to that in a bit because I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate on that one because I've still got a few concerns in that area, to be honest. Let's talk about the actual games then first, Mike. First up, the Shrewsbury game. I mean, as much as they're a team that is struggling in League One, I mean, you obviously weren't at the game, but you'll watch the highlights and whatnot. You could really see how much of a better side they were than us and what difference there is actually between a League One struggler and a League Two struggler. I mean, clearly at League One level, they're going to struggle against the really good sides then.
Yeah.
But...
I was just going to say, I mean, they've been moaning about the lack of goals and all that, and they've got Ryan Bowman up front, and if Ryan Bowman played for us, it'd be the first name on the team sheet probably.
Yeah, absolutely. He'd be starting every single week, and the difference really was they were that little bit more composed. They never looked on a massive threat after going ahead as well. Once they got the goal, you got the impression that they weren't really at full pelt. They were sort of sitting back, holding back on what they had and looking to maybe hit us on the break when they got the chance. And knowing that we've got such a poor record in front of goal, they never really felt like they were going to struggle, did they? That first goal, it's just weak defending again, isn't it? It's frustrating. Actually, when you look back at it now, to be fair, they get away on the left, and actually, if you watch Kelvin Mellor, he looks like he pulls up or something, doesn't he? Because he does not track the runners at all, and it's not as if he's just walking back. You can see there's a little bit of a limp as he tries to walk back, and the lad gets in. Ball comes across, and there's still a chance to sort of deal with it. And the thing is, the shot comes in, and it probably is going towards goal, but it's not going at full pelt. And Corey Whelan just sort of wafts a leg at it, doesn't he? And he pretty much puts it into the back of the net. It's not an own goal in that sense because it was on target, but it's one of those ones you think if you get a proper block in there, you probably get that ball away. It's quite a frustrating one actually.
Whelan's a weird one for me. For someone who's like played so much football, I'm kind of undecided on him as to how good he is. Do you know what I mean? Like seems
kind of not sure what his best position is either. I mean, he's played a couple of games in midfield and he's looked okay, but then he's played another in midfield where he looked awful.
Yeah,
he's been okay at centre back at best. Really, he's not set the world on fire. And at right back, I mean, we'll come up to Mansfield soon, but the difference when Kelvin Mellor came on at Mansfield to when Whelan was playing at right back was night and day in terms of the quality there. So it's a difficult one. You can see there's a lad who's been trained at a decent level. Obviously, been in the Liverpool Academy and the under-23s there. But yeah, he needs to really pin down a position and really work out what kind of player he is. Sooner rather than later. I mean, so obviously, that early goal was disappointing. But I mean, that said, United had chances. I mean, the most gilt-edged one has got to be Brad Young. Now, I don't think you'll have seen this because it doesn't seem to have appeared in any highlights anywhere.
No, but apparently rounded the keeper.
God, it was so frustrating because basically it was a weird one. He sort of nicked the ball off the keeper, basically, from what I remember, with messing about a little bit, and he messed up. And he did the difficult work really well, Young. He got in there and he nicked the ball off the keeper and he went round him, got to start the edge of the box. And if he gets his head up and has a look across, Justin Abrahams literally has an open goal to play the ball into. And I mean, I'm not even over-exaggerating there. Literally, he was pretty much on the penalty spot. There was no defender on the line. You play the ball to him, it's 1-1. Game on. And I don't know why, but he went for goal. And there was and the defender was right in front of him, and it wasn't a difficult block for the defender. And you could see then, like, when he actually got his head up and looked, and you could see his shoulders dropped, and he was like, I've messed up big time here, haven't I? You could just see that on him, and it's a difficult one, and it's a really tough lesson for Brad Young at the moment. I said this before, he looks like an under-23 player who still thinks he's playing under-23 football. That's the big difference. He thinks he's got loads of time on the ball, doesn't he? And
that's the thing, yeah. And it's become a bit of a thing. I mean, it's all good and well saying that we don't create enough chance for our strikers, but some of the good chances that they do get, Young is often the one who just doesn't quite do enough, you know. And he's a young lad, and it's harsh putting it all on his shoulders, but
in a sense, I wouldn't say he doesn't do. I know what you mean when you say he doesn't do quite enough. I think one of his big problems is he tries to do too much. When he gets the ball, and he does really well, and he nicks the ball back or something, he works hard to get it. He then tries to beat three men, and you think to yourself, get your head up, lay the ball off, and then make your run, and then you can receive the ball back. That's where he really has to learn. It's not like you watch under 23 football. I watch a little bit of it occasionally. And,
oh yeah,
and literally, I mean, look at Mampala scored a fair few at under 23 level for Everton, and he looks nowhere near ready for football at our level, does he? He does, for me, he looks very, very raw.
And I think that's the best way to describe.
Young's a bit younger, so you can basically you can give or take a little bit with him, but he's going to have to learn very quickly that. You can't just beat 3 or 4 men and score a spectacular goal because these are big, tough lads. These are lads who have been there, done that. And, on Tuesday night, he was up against John Joe O'Toole, who really has been there and done that. He is a proper hard man at our level. So, he's going to learn big lessons. And it's one of those ones. We'll talk more about Young shortly because I've got him down as a point to talk about later. But yeah, really frustrating one. We'll talk about the protest actually in a second. I won't cover that just yet. Second goal, I mean, Brian Bowman. That's the difference, isn't it, between the two sides? That's a bit of composure. He turns on the ball as he gets into the box and just slots it away. Yeah,
great finish.
The most annoying thing about that goal actually is the fact that Rod McDonald had an excellent game against Shrewsbury. He was really good again. And the one time he tried to nick in and get the ball, their lad showed a good little turn and got away from him, and that's the one time in the whole game. It's frustrating, and we're not going to pick on him for that because at the end of the day, he was trying to play on the front foot. He was trying to win the ball so we could get on the attack again. It happens every now and then, and there's still plenty of time to go between then and the goal, and it's just a good finish. Just frustrating. Definitely. At that point, you felt game was over. Obviously, Jordan Gibson scored a good goal actually late on. To be fair, really good turn finish.
Yeah, and that's the thing with me is we've had better chances than that we haven't scored. It wasn't that good of a chance, relatively speaking, but he put it away. And another assist from Mampala as well.
Yeah, well, give him credit there. Yeah, it's one of those ones. Isn't it? Some of our long range finishing has been poor this season, and some of the decision making in terms of shots like that. In fact, decision making full stop is one of our biggest issues. Yeah. The amount of time that we play the wrong pass, or take the wrong touch, and there's no thought into it sometimes. There needs to be a bit more composure as much as anything this time.
And not only that, but players actually taking account, because we've seen it far too many times where players are just sort of passing it to each other because they don't want to be responsible if we fluff possession, basically. But, it's good to see players take account and think, right, I'm going to have a go. I'm going to try and win the game here,
Yeah, I mean, Gibson is like that. Gibson is the kind of player who just try to take it by the scruff of the neck, and I think in a better team he'd show it even more, but it's just the way it's out there, isn't it? But I mean, if you look at the stats, it would actually suggest Shrewsbury might have got a bit lucky and, just hit us on the break or something, and we dominated the game, but actually it doesn't really reflect how the game went. We had some shots, but I mean, they the keeper didn't have a huge amount to do. That's the brutal honesty in all of it, really. So sad, but there you go. Yes, so the one I wouldn't say it's a positive, but one of the things to look at from this is we've actually now got a free weekend in January. Obviously, because Hartlepool got through to the third round, and we were due to play Hartlepool on the third round day. So that means from the Scunthorpe game, I think it's through to the Crawley game. I think it's on the 15th because you're off that weekend, aren't you?
Yeah.
We've got a 2-week gap. I think there is a Peter Trophy game potentially in there as well, but I mean, let's just ignore that for a second.
Yeah.
That's 2 weeks basically for if we can get players in, and if Millen wants to really stamp a style or a way of playing on this team, that's 2 weeks to work on it.
Yeah,
that's the way to... Don't look at it as a negative now. Look at it as a positive. Right, we've got 2 weeks on the training ground now where I can work these players solidly and get them into shape and get them playing the way I want to play them. That's the way we've got to look at that.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's briefly mention the protest then, Mike. I mean, a lot of talk beforehand, a lot of shenanigans on the Friday, I think it's fair to say, by one of the protest organisers. I mean, pathetic behaviour, quite frankly, some of it. In terms of the protest itself, I'm not against people protesting. I think it's the right thing. I've got a real issue with the tennis ball protest at the moment. One, because it's just carbon copy of what Oldham done. It's not nothing original, really. Two, if you're going to do it, make it effective. You need hundreds of balls going on the pitch, not 6 balls as it was.
Yeah.
Literally 6 balls. And it was people were like Shrewsbury singing, what the effing hell is that? That's how embarrassing it was. It was not great. It wasn't well organised. Considering who was organising it and the way things were handled on the previous ones, it's not really a massive surprise it was a shambles in that sense.
No.
Really, and two, I don't think we're quite at the stage where disrupting games is the kind of protest we're at. I think you've got to build these kind of protests slowly. If you're going to protest,
definitely.
Don't go straight in with we're going to disrupt the game with tennis balls. Build up with your banners and stuff like that. And actually, the most effective thing they did was getting that banner out in the paddock. They got a banner out. I think it was something like "Get out of our club, custodians fairly," or something like that. I didn't see exactly what it was because I was sat in the B stand. I would normally be stood down where it happened, but I was actually in the B stand for a change. And the club handled that badly, I think, actually. I know there'll be the usual, it wasn't a fire retardant flag. I mean, get over it. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's a really poor excuse to say that. And then trying to drag 2 kids out because they were holding up a banner. And then the funny thing was they started chucking the banner to other people to hold up instead and they got them dragged away. I mean, they're lucky some of the old boys were in the paddock that day because they would not have stood for picking on kids like that.
No, exactly.
And the problem is as well, if as a club you're going to say to Oldham fans, yes, no problem, you can put your banners up protesting against your owners in the Waterworks end. You can't grumble when Carlisle fans want to bring their own about you. You can't. It's double standards. You've got to really get a grip on that for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're spot on what you said about sort of jumping in, trying to do too much too soon with protests and kind of needing it to be, I don't know, a bit more, build it up slower. I think because there's been these protests where they've gone all in and said, right, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and it hasn't happened, and it's kind of delegitimized. Is that a word? I don't know. It's kind of, delegitimized further protests kind of thing.
And the thing is, people think they're a joke then because they try to go too big too soon, and then they don't back it because you were a shambles last time. That's what happens.
Exactly.
You've got to really think about these things. And also, my other worry is that some of the objects actually hit some of the Shrewsbury coaching staff when they were thrown at the pitch. There was bouncy balls being thrown as well, and I don't like that because people might laugh and scoff at this, but a bouncy ball landing on the pitch, if it's not spotted, a tennis ball's fine, you can spot it, but a bouncy ball landing on the pitch, all it takes is one of our players to stand on it, turn their ankle, and they're out for the season.
Yeah.
But have a think about these things,
But not only that, but I mean, chucking them at the opposition staff, that can land the club a fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I know they'll say, "Oh, I don't care, it's the owners and that," but the owners aren't taking money out of this club. That's something people need to realise really quickly. Go and look at the club accounts; they're not taking money out. The club struggles to make money as it is, so you've got to think very carefully about these things. That we will touch more on this when we do our State of the Club special, which we are going to do in the new year now because we've got that free weekend, so we'll do it then. And it will cover the fact that I think people are looking at the wrong issue, I think, at the moment in terms of the owners, because they're not the ones with the power at the club anymore. People need to grasp that. it's the debt is where the power is, basically.
I do have to laugh though, because the whole thing when Philip Day sort of started flirting with getting involved, in my head I was thinking, oh, he's a billionaire, we'll be in the Premier League within 5 years, it'd be wonderful, and all we got is a load of debt and David Holdsworth.
Yes, we'll talk about him soon, won't we? Because I've got a bit of run to have there anyway. But yeah, so that's the Shrewsbury game pretty much covered. Got to give a quick shout out to our good mate Johnny. Johnny, who sat next to me in the B stand, managed to break his seat. Well, I had to say break his seat. It basically collapsed underneath him. That's not to say he's a big lad or anything, but well, I mean he is. But but no, it's basically the state of the seat in the B stand. Basically, the screws had rusted away essentially. So
the whole ground, it's fallen apart.
Oh, right? it's that again. That's another one we'll touch on that special, I'm sure. Okay, let's cover the Mansfield game now then, Mike. I mean, once again, a dreadful start. I mean, I watched this on the Eiffel. I think you were working, weren't you? So I don't know if you got to watch it or not.
I was listening again, yeah.
You're listening, yeah. Well, it's funny because I left the room for like 2 minutes to go to the kitchen and make a drink. Came back in and they scored, and I thought, well, that's a waste of a £10 then, isn't it? Basically for the night. I mean, it's frustrating because we know we can't come from behind. That's the problem. So as soon as the opposition score after 6 minutes, you're like, well, that kills any atmosphere amongst the away fans. It kills any belief in the players. It's a bad habit that we really need to get out of, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's ingrained so deeply psychologically. I pity whoever's job it is to try and get them out of that.
I mean, that is in one sense why we need fresh faces in there, isn't it? People who aren't tainted by that. And probably why we need more fresh faces than we originally thought.
Yeah.
Again, another one we'll talk about in a minute. But I mean, it's just poor defending all around. I mean, Corey Whelan's defending. Fair play. Yeah, he isn't a right back in that sense, I suppose. But I mean, he was brought in there, wasn't he? Initially, the thought was that he was going to be cover at right back for Tanner, but he's clearly not up to the job in that role. And McLaughlin should not be getting that much space to head the ball on goal, really, should he?
No, definitely not. It was poor defending, again, because we sort of mentioned Whelan with Shrewsbury as well, and I'm still not sure on him.
I mean, you also didn't watch it, Mike, but I genuinely would say the first 40 minutes were as bad as anything I saw in the Martin Wilkinson area, the latter day Graham Kavanagh era, and the final days of Collins. That's genuinely how bad it was. It was awful. They switched on for the last 5 minutes and they had a bit of pressure, but I mean, there was just before that, it was just total disinterest. It was dreadful passes, awful first touches, no real thought into what we were doing. There was no real thinking of like there was a game plan. It was like the early goal just completely knocked any sort of game plan they had in their heads out of it. They just didn't know what to do. It was really bad. Could easily have been 2 at half time, actually. It was a mistake by McDonald. I think it was not a great pass to him. He tried to take a touch and the player nipped in. He got away on goal. Good save by Howard. And to be fair, some credit to McDonald. He got back and got the block in on the rebound from that save. So did well there. Second half was more effective, and some people say, we played quite well second half, but it's still mostly half chances. I mean, Sam Fishburne with a good flick-on header from a Dickinson corner that was cleared off the line. And Gibson hit the bar in injury time as well with a long-range effort.
One hell of an effort. Man.
I mean, it would have been a brilliant goal if it had gone in, but that's what we're resorting to. We're hoping that Jordan Gibson can give us a bit of magic, or Sam Fishburne, an 18-year-old kid, can dig us out of trouble. That's not a great situation to be in at all. It really isn't. And once again, we're just toothless in attack. I mean, Millen's post-match interview, fair play, was honest, but I found it worrying. There was a suggestion that we didn't seem to know how we can get goals into the team. 13 goals in 20 games, lowest scores in the division. I don't know where we go from here on that.
It's poor. It really is.
And the one thing that stand out this season as well, that I haven't put in the running order here, but we have no threat on set pieces anymore.
No, not at all.
You never get, when we get a corner or a free kick and you think, we might do something here.
And
I mean, go on.
I was just going to say vice versa. Whenever we concede a set piece, I'm always thinking we're going to concede off this.
I think we've got a little bit better at that since Millen's come in. To be fair,
we have done like a little bit, yeah. But I'm not feeling assured. I think we maybe lack a little bit of height, but we lack like aggression players, like just willing to attack the ball. You know,
someone who's just going to be an absolute bastard basically and say, "I'm getting to this ball. I don't care what I do to you. If they give away a free kick this time, fine, because one time I'll get away with it." That's the key thing. It's just soft, and some of them don't beat the first man. I mean, and then you have that. I mean, the free kick from Dickinson at the end was infuriating. I know he's maybe trying to play the low ball, hope someone got a slight flick on it, but it was straight at the keeper. It was an easy save, and you think, loft it to the far post, get them challenging for the header. Fishburne was winning headers against their defenders. Just everything about that anyway. So, I mean, that's the Mansfield game covered. There's not really much to add on that, really. We covered quite a bit of the Shrewsbury game as well. Just looking at general points here, Mike, I mean, all the talk, and we've been as guilty of it as anyone, has been of getting through to January and getting some players in. And originally we said about 2 or 3 players, but I mean, as it stands, I think 5 or 6 we need. I think we genuinely need to change the core of that dressing room. The problem if you do that is you're going to have to ship players out because you can't have a bigger squad anyway. And who's going to take our players? You're probably going to have to look and think, I'm going to have to pay a few contracts up here just to get people to move on.
That's the thing. I mean, I think they said the other day that there is money to spend in January.
But who's going to come in?
Well, that's the
who's
thing.
Who's going to come in? It's not like when Beach took over. At that point, we were still, 19th, weren't we? We were a little bit away from trouble. You could look at it as a player and say, okay, there are above the relegations now. We can get ourselves up the table here, potentially. That's the way they'd look at it, isn't
it? Exactly, yeah. It's we're not an attractive prospect right now, but for, we can't go down the young kids on loan route either. We need experienced heads.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that we've said before that, the players that Paul Simpson brought in, when he first took charge are exactly what we kind of need. But I'm not entirely convinced that those players exist
it's not even so much that they exist, but it's the football landscape's changed and the circumstances change. Back then, you could get those players in a couple of months loan, or you get them in during the season, and so that you didn't have the transfer window back in 2003. You've got that now, so you're basically relying on getting half-season loans or players on their contracts paid up or leaving clubs, and we were able to gradually build that squad up here. Here, we're going to have to get these players in and go straight from it.
Yeah,
because you think it was one by one. It was you had Henderson come in, then Arneson, and then I think Cowan turned up and Gray. Priest eventually came as well. So it was bit by bit that squad was built up. We're going to have to go for all 5 at once, really.
Yeah,
I mean, realistically, again, we'll talk about Holdsworth in a second, but if he's worth his money, he should be getting these players ready to be signed up 2 days before the transfer window opens. Like we did with Elliot Watt. Elliot Watt signed before that Walsall game we went to, didn't he? Yeah. He was there at the game, so that's what we need to be doing. It terrifies me that we're going to get into like a week into the January and we still won't have signed anyone.
I mean, I think our bet really is players who sort of out of favour at maybe like a League One club, maybe
a Championship.
Yeah, like sort of an experienced pro who's just kind of out of the team, and we can say, look, we won't pay a transfer fee, but we'll take them off your wage bill. And we can agree those terms right now and have them come through the door on the 1st of January. That's what we should be doing.
I mean, would you maybe look at a Cumbrian-born defender playing in the Championship who's not played much this season at all, possibly? I don't know.
If you'd asked me a year or two ago, I'd say hell no, but we're desperate, aren't we? We really are.
I'd have Paul Huntington any day of the week at this club, really. It'd be a massive upgrade on what we've got. I mean, the issue we've got, as we mentioned before, is does Millen have the contacts in the north as well? That's another big concern that everyone seems to have. I mean, in terms of Millen, let's get on to it now, because obviously you defended him a little bit at the start. We talk about giving him time, letting him bring his own players coming in January, but he's not had much of an effect so far, generally. I mean, we're tighter at the back, but all that means is really we're losing games by 1 goal instead of by 2 or 3. We're not winning games. We're not looking anywhere near close to winning games. That Walsall game, let's look back at it now. That was a bit of a fluke. Walsall massively did not turn up. That's the reason we won. We didn't win because we played well. We won because Walsall didn't turn up, and we got a scrappy goal to what? Well, say scrappy. It was a good pass in, but it was a bit of a launch it and hope almost goal at the end of the game. And Walsall were dreadful. Like, to be fair, they were interested. That's why we got a result there.
Yeah,
we're not winning games by that. I mean, we've had no new manager bounce. 4 points from 21. How long do you persist? I mean, let's say we've got Stevenage this weekend, haven't we? We've got Bradford. Let's say we don't win against Stevenage. Maybe we draw against Stevenage. Okay, we get beat by Bradford. We maybe get beat by Rochdale and then probably lose at Salford. If he gets like 1 point from the next 4 games, do you then say to him, "Okay, we're going to give you January to bring your own players in," even though you've only picked up 5 points from a possible 33? Or even if he gets one more win in there, that'll be 8 points from 33. What do you say to him? Oh yeah, we'll give you January. That's where we're gonna have to start asking a question there. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me is when we got him in, and the sort of final shortlist was Millen, Keith Hill, and Darren Saul, I think.
Well, I'm not sure he was actually on it. I think there was a bit of a mischief there, maybe. I don't know. But
yeah, but either way, there's been previous times when our manager job has been up for grabs, and there's been good names like linked with it. Those were the 3 that were sort of heavily linked with it. And previous years when our manager's job has been up for grabs, there's been pretty strong candidates linked with it, and we've gone in a different direction. Who is going to apply for the job? If we were to sack him,
there's always someone out there. But this is the thing, that there's always going to be people. I mean, put it this way, right? I'm just looking at the form table right now. Well, obviously Scunthorpe got Keith Hill instead of getting. Obviously, instead of coming to us. I mean, they're 1 place above us in the form table, same number of points, but they've basically only lost 2 of the last 6. They've lost 2 and then drawn 3 others. And that includes a draw against Leyton Orient and a draw against Bradford, teams higher up the table. So they're grinding out results in that sense. They've basically, no one's kept a clean sheet against them in essentially the last 6 games as well. Whereas I'm looking here, well, I can see 4 clean sheets kept against us. In fact, 5, sorry, because Barrow did as well. We've only managed to score in 1 of the last 5. They've scored in all 6. So they're getting the odd goal here and there. And you'd imagine they'll probably get a couple of players in January. I feel like they're going to start to catch us up. I think we're relying on basically Barrow dropping like a stone as well.
Yeah, we are.
Right now. And Oldham struggling to get themselves any sort of results.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
we're
dependent on other teams to do terrible rather than us to really turn the corner.
So I mean, this is one for our listeners. I'm playing devil's advocate here, but what do you do if this form keeps up until January? Do you stick with Millen, or do you cut your losses, have a man lined up right now, and basically say, like, come the end of the month, sorry, Keith, it just has not worked out. We're cutting our losses here, and then basically go and get someone in really quickly. So basically, have someone like a Paul Simpson. I'm saying, right, you're coming in. Who are you going to bring in as players? Let's get them in now. I'm completely playing devil's advocate here. I'm not necessarily saying yes, sack him now, but if this form keeps up, I know we've not got a great squad, but I don't know. He's made us tighter, but I don't see the improvements. And
I'm just not so sure that would necessarily keep us up. More upheaval and
maybe not
all the rest of it.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm being harsh. I don't know, but there you go. Right, well, let's move on to the bit I really wanted to talk about for a while. I mean, Holdsworth. Where out thou Holdsworth, eh? Silence, that's what we've had from him. Silence for nearly 2 months now. I had looked this up. The last article he did on the official website was on the 15th of October. Now, he was quoted in Millen's announcement, which was, a week and a half later, I think, after that, maybe. But that was literally just a quote in there. That wasn't, the bog standard. Great to have Keith in, blah, blah, blah. I used to play with him, blah, blah, blah. I haven't seen him for years. Yeah, okay. But the last article he's done on the official website, and it was something like, I understand the frustration of the fans, was the title of it, was on the 15th of October. Come next Wednesday, that'll be 2 months since he last spoke to the fans that way. And I know that the media have been asking for an interview with him, and he's not forthcoming. What's he up to? Why is he being such a coward? Why won't he speak? Why won't he front up to the failure of his recruitment process in the summer? And that's essentially what it is. It's incredibly frustrating, the fact that we're not hearing from him. I mean, interesting comment that Nigel Clibbins revealed in one of his updates last week. Nice to have someone from the club at least speaking in that sense and giving us an update on how things are going. He revealed that the playing budget was up 20%. That
blew my mind.
And yet we've got an absolute shit show of a squad to show for it.
Yeah, exactly.
It really calls into serious question Holdsworth's supposed brilliant negotiating skills that we all hear about. You know, Clough and Abrahams must be on a decent wedge.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
That, and they've not been up to it.
2-year deals as well.
Not been up to it. Both stuck with them on 2-year deals, those two, right? New deals for Guy and Mellish, which look more and more ridiculous as each day goes on. You might talk about protecting assets, but they've also got to earn it. I mean, Mellish, he got, by that point, maybe 1 or 2 goals with it or something. He wasn't playing in anywhere the same way. He's shown now that he basically isn't capable of playing in midfield too. That's not his fault.
Yeah.
He's all right in midfield 3 because he's got a bit more freedom to bomb forward and stuff. But midfield 2, where he has to be disciplined, you don't get the goals from him, and that's the reason you've got him in midfield.
Yeah,
to the point where you might as well play him up front. And we'll cover that. We said that in jest, but it happened on Tuesday night against Mansfield. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, if that 20% figure's true, I have no reason not to believe Clibbins, and it'll appear in the accounts, I'm sure, when it comes to it, right? Then the offers made to the out-of-contract players in the summer look even more ridiculous as well. That makes it look even more stupid. I don't know what he's supposed master plan in all this. I mean, offering a 1-year deal to Farman. I know people say, oh, well, Barrow's struggling down near the bottom. Yeah, but he'd been our keeper. He'd been consistent. There's a bit of continuity there. The whole back five is gone from last season. The first choice back five.
Yeah.
You'd argue. I mean, Armour, you may be saying possibly, but wasn't really first choice, was he?
Well, not going into last season, no, but, you know, coming out of last season, he sort of was our first choice. But, yeah, it's not only that, but I'm still baffled by the Trigger and Jimmy Torres 1 year, you know, is 1 year.
I mean, that was a weird one, and I don't know what Beach was thinking there and why. Quite why Holdsworth agreed to it. Surely that's the way a director of football should be questioning your manager and saying, hang on a second, why are you triggering this deal when you've barely played him for the last few months? What's the thinking behind that? You're basically restricting your budget. And sometimes you find with these triggers as well, there's sometimes bits in there where they say their wage will go up slightly as well. So that can potentially affect the amount of budget you've got.
I feel like Torre is maybe one of them who is like incredible at training, and we're maybe scared that if he went to another club, another manager might unlock.
Well, don't have that fear and then actually play him. Don't then just do it and then not play him. It's nonsense, isn't it? When that happens. Yeah, so it's frustrating. I mean, he'll bang on Holdsworth about the fact that we've developed all these players and sold them for a few shekels every season or something to keep the club going, and what a great job I'm doing there. But it might be funny, but if we go to the league, buy your academy in 2 years, you lose all the funding. Because we will not come back at the first attempt.
No,
I'm not.
No way.
In the current setup, we would fail. We'd be struggling in the bottom half of that division.
It was weird when we went down last time. I knew we'd bounce straight back.
Yeah,
because
we had the momentum.
But even when we slumped down to like 13th or whatever it was, like I knew like we'll be back.
Yeah, because we had experience heading there and we had the momentum. We don't have that now.
No, exactly.
We don't, and. Yeah, it's getting to the point where he needs to front up or more ideally ship out, to be honest. He's been a failure. He's not a director of football. He basically should be something like football contracts advisor. That's what his title should be. Because he's not a director of football. He doesn't have, he doesn't seem to have some sort of game plan of the overall structure of how the club trains and how the club coaches and things like that. He basically just sorts out the contracts. Well, not being funny, but Nigel Clibbins can do that. I mean, he's the one who sorted out that 20% sell-on clause for Sam Cosgrove, who was going to leave the club at the end of the season anyway for free, and got us cash for him.
We could give him the role Carlisle United negotiation tsar.
Yes. Don't spell it out. Everyone knows what the initials of that is. Thank you very much. Yeah. And it's a very accurate set of initials. He basically, at the moment, he's the one taking us into non-league football.
Yeah,
and the thing is, do you reckon he'll get sacked if we go down to non-league and we've still got this debt today and he's the one keeping an eye on things? No, well, it'll be other people at the club who lose their jobs.
Yeah, he absolutely should be, and yeah, like you say, if we do go down, off the field staff, there's going to be redundancies. People are going to lose their jobs, and
it's all because of his failure.
Yeah,
it's astonishing, isn't it? It's. I need to stop talking about him because it's just going to make me really angry for the rest of the day. I think. I don't think we've got any more to cover in terms of the review stuff, mate. With a couple of points there, but I've gone on for too long now, I think. So let's move on. Let's go into the preview section and talk about what is now a massive game this weekend. And we're back for part 2, Mike. Just a reminder to everyone, obviously, you can subscribe to the podcast on all good podcast apps. So Acast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Just search for Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and whenever you get the podcast, whenever one comes out even, it'll come straight into your little inbox on your podcast app. And obviously reviewers on those podcast apps if you can as well. 5 stars would be lovely. And obviously you can follow us on social media. At Brunton Bugle is our Twitter handle. Search for Brunton Bugle on Facebook. We're on there as well. And we also post on the Be Just and Fear Not Facebook group, which is a fantastic group, really worth joining. And I would recommend anyone sign up for that. And obviously as well, the Cumbrians.net message board. And if you want to use the old-fashioned email route, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Just a reminder that this season, the second half of the show has been sponsored by the Carl United Sports Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carl United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee, and Houston to Singapore, and of course every part of London and the South East and Cumbria as well. They regularly meet up on away trips, and they also arrange many social events and sports games and do fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section of this season too. You can find out more about London Branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. And now I'm just digging out, because I got sent over the pub for Stevenage. Let me just tell you what it is. The pre-match pub for Stevenage is it's our mutual friend, which I think is one I've been in before. It's a nice little pub. It's on Broadwater Crescent in Stevenage, and the postcode, if you need that, is SG28EH. So that's where the London Branch will be drinking before the game. There'll no doubt be quite a few of them there for this match. We normally have the catching up with the opposition podcast bit here on the show, but unfortunately I haven't had time to arrange it this week. Had a very, very busy week. I've got a tumble dryer arriving today, so that's a short, proper adulting, that, isn't it? Really.
Someone's doing well with all the donations people have been making.
Very good, very good. If only. Yes. So this weekend's game, obviously Stevenage away down at the Lamech Stadium, as it's known for sponsorship reasons. It's Broadhall Way was originally called, of course. Referee is Declan Bourne from the East Midlands. It's his second season as EFL referee. He's taken charge of 14 games so far this season, handing out 57 bookings and 2 red cards. He last took charge of a United game for the 2-1 home defeat to Forest Green Rovers last season, in which Bennett and Riley were booked. I mean, that game all just sticks with me, because it's one of those ones where it was kind of like, ooh, maybe we're not as good as we think we are. Because that was the start of the bad run, wasn't it? I think because we'd beaten Exeter the weekend after the little COVID break, and then we'd lost that game. And we were like, oh yeah, Forest Green are a very good side, aren't they?
It was one of them. It was, are they good or are we not so good?
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, let's cover the classic clash now, then, Mike. I mean, is there any other game I could have picked for this one?
You certainly couldn't have picked that away trip that you and me made a few years ago, where we lost 3-0.
That was awful, wasn't it? That was dreadful. We're going back to one of the most important results, I would argue, in United's recent history, last 20 years today, as we remember the conference playoff final at Stoke City's Britannia Stadium back in May 2005. I mean, there can be no doubt in my can there that this was a proper sliding doors moment for the Blues, wasn't it? Returning to the Football League. And the first attempt, it gave the club a real sense of momentum that would eventually result in the League Two title just 12 months later and return to third-tier football after an 8-year absence. I mean, it could have been so different had the Blues not got promotion that season, as evidenced by how the National League these days it basically resembles a graveyard for previously long-term EFL clubs, and all of them fighting to get back up and part of the 92 club. I mean, it's a real stark warning, isn't it, to the club right now? It's to the risk, because I think actually it was easier back then to do this than it is now. It's much more difficult now.
I mean, you think of some of the clubs in the National League back then, like Lee RMI and Northwich Victoria.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, you've got smaller clubs there now as well. I mean, you've got your Maidenheads and your Wheelstones and people like that. But even so, there were some very small clubs back then. Clubs that had been there for years and just sort of their fan base had dwindled. Some of them, I think, and it would, it was quite evidence as to how difficult it would be now. I mean, you look at it now. What have you got there? Southend, Grimsby, Chesterfield.
It's a very southern league. As well.
Chesterfield, Wrexham, Notts County. I mean, there's 5 off the top of my head. I haven't got the table up, so I can't really tell you. But I mean, it tells you how difficult it will be if we go down. Because we won't have big money either, and some of those clubs do. I mean, Grimsby have done quite well without big money to keep themselves up there for a lot of seasons. But they've started to have a few duff results lately, and it would be incredibly tough for us to get back out of that league. Really,
I mean, it was never particularly easy. We were one of only a few teams that actually bounced straight.
Us and Shrewsbury did it 2 years in a row. There was 2 teams, us and Shrewsbury, that managed to do it. And then after that, I don't think there was another one for quite a while. Actually, I think Bristol Rovers might have been the next one. And that was a long way down the line. That was a good 10 years or so, I think. And then you look. I mean, Tranmere went down. When Tranmere went down, I thought, they'll come back first time of asking, no bother. And it took them a couple of years. Yeah, it was tough for them, and the playoffs are never that easy at that level either. So it's it just goes to show, doesn't it? Backed by over 10,000 Blues in the crowd for this game. There was a crowd of over 13,000. United started.
We outnumbered them so much, didn't we?
It was something. I think I mean, they said on board TV we outnumbered them 3-1. I think it was more like 4-1 to be honest in the end. Yeah. So backed by the crowd of 10,000 Blues. United started quite brightly, actually. Derek Holmes had an early shot on the turn that was saved by Stevenage stopper Julian. But halfway through the first half, that was when the decisive goal came. Tom Cahn's throw-in came back out to him on the left, and he took a touch, and he sort of clipped across him, wasn't it? It was a very sort of measured cross. It wasn't just like, I'm going to hoof it in. He was very measured, perfectly found Peter Murphy. He just unmarked, nodded the ball into the bottom corner.
But Murphy still had quite a lot to do. Like
there
wasn't sort of the power in the cross. Murphy really had to redirect it and put a bit of power behind it.
And he placed it brilliantly as well to head it down as well to make it difficult for the keeper to get to.
Yeah,
it was a great header, really good goal. I mean, it's difficult because I'm sure there's a copy of the whole game somewhere available to watch, but I've seen and watched the highlights. But from memory as well, I never felt like we were going to lose this.
No.
Once we scored, I thought, I'm quite comfortable here. Because, I mean, we played them twice in the season and they'd beaten us on both occasions 2-1. I remember famously Kieran Westwood was in tears after the game down at Broadall Way, wasn't he? And that was the one where I think it was either that one or the home game, wasn't it? Where their players were all banging on the dressing room doors. They went back to theirs after the match. And Paul Simpson made a point of saying, right, we need to get one over these lot at the end of the season.
Yeah, and by all accounts, after this game, the players asked Simo, can we bang on their changing room door and rub their noses in it? And Simo was like, go on. And Graham Wesley was fuming about it.
Well, normally, you'd think a player fire, you wouldn't do that. It's a bit harsh, but the way they behaved in those games, quite frankly, I didn't really care.
Yeah.
I'm quite happy for it to be bad sport in that sense. When they offered little threat, there was a couple of efforts. Glennon made a couple of smart saves, but I mean that was about the extent of the pressure they put on us. This game will also be famously remembered for the fact that it should have been 2-0, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
In injury time, their keeper comes up for it. I can't remember if it was a free kick or a corner, or even maybe a throw-in. Got nowhere near it, and we got the ball away on the break, and Vieira got it, and he ran pretty much the length of the pitch. Yeah. And all he had to do was get his head up because the defender wasn't even blocking the goal. All he had to do was just quickly slot it. And he never ever got his head up. He just kept running. Never looked to see there was no goalkeeper there and got fouls. I mean, to be fair, their play should have been sent off. It's only because it was the end of the game the ref was like, what's the point? He's putting more misery on the lad.
Yeah, exactly.
And basically, Vieira then looks and he sees his player scream saying, why didn't you shoot? And he looks across and sees there's no goalkeeper. And if you look at the footage, you can see his face like, oh no, I could have been the hero. I could have got that goal.
Well, I think while he had the ball, he half looked up to see where the keeper was and see where to put it. And he couldn't see the keeper, so he didn't know where to put it.
Yeah. Well, he couldn't see a gig because he wasn't there. He was 50 yards behind him.
Exactly.
Free kick then, obviously, was given, and Lummy just launched it into the... I mean, he could have had a goal, couldn't he? He should have just levered it towards the top corner, but...
I think he scored a couple of free kicks that season, didn't he?
Yeah, so it's one of those ones you think he should have had a go, but he decided to give one of the fans a present, didn't he?
But it's really funny that, because I've shown that to a few non-Carlisle fans with no context whatsoever, and it just looks hilarious, this player just hoofing a free kick into Rose End, and then absolute limbs from everybody.
And then him running away with his arms, going, he scored the winner, and you can see that their defender, like when he hits it, he's like, why has he done that? And he's like, oh, that's why the whistle's gone. But so obviously back up to League Two at the first attempt, and they had a good side back there. I mean, George Boyd was the standout player for them, wasn't he? He was probably one of the best players in the division, and went on to a very good career. So they obviously got up eventually. Stevenage a few years later, I think they went up as champions, didn't they? So there you go. That's our classic match. I mean, looking quickly at the lineup that day, I mean, it's a strong side, isn't it? It's a very strong side. Peter Murphy playing in midfield as he did back then. Yeah. Obviously won us a fair bit of money in terms of backing first goal scorer that season, I remember. Yeah. Because he was still classified as a defender. Right, let's move on to the play for both section. Mike, it's a bit shorter this week for once. So here's what Dan has sent in. Obviously, he's not able to record him today, but here's Dan's play for both.
This week's played for both is quite a topical one because he's been in the news this week. He was born on Merseyside and started his career at Everton, and he actually played for Carlisle as a loanee. It is Steven Schumacher. He only played 4 games for us. I think he had a couple of niggles when he was here, and he later left Everton without making an appearance. And then he had quite a solid lower league career. He was at Bradford, Crewe, Fleetwood, Stevenage. When he joined them, he actually did his ACL, missed about 8 or 9 months, which is obviously a fair bit. And when he sort of wound up his playing career in the professional game, he moved back to Merseyside with, I think it was Southport for the season. And then he went into coaching alongside Ryan Lowe, obviously at Bury and Plymouth. And then just this last week, Ryan Lowe's left Plymouth for Preston, and Steve Schumacher's made the step up for his first management job with Plymouth. So all the best of luck to him. Good club there, Plymouth. So that was this week's Played for Both.
There you go. He's jumped ahead to the X-Files section already. Yeah. He's very well organised this week, Dan. Yeah, there you
Seamless segue.
Excellent. Stephen Schumacher, I mean, I remember him coming on loan and we'd been like, we've got a player on loan from Everton. That's exciting. And I think he just struggled a bit with injuries. He was never quite fit. He never could quite get into the team. And one of those ones who obviously went on to have a very decent career at lower league level. So there you go. Stephen Schumacher. Full list, Mike. I thought he was going to pick this one because he's one that always fascinates Carlisle fans. Tommy Black, a little bit before your time, I think. He was on loan from Arsenal back in the 99-2000 season, right at the start of it in August. He was a little tricky little winger with this sort of typical 90s floppy hair, floppy curtains haircut. And he was excellent. The few games he played, he was really exciting. He would take players on. He would put crosses in. He scored a goal against Plymouth, I think, funny enough, in a 4-1 win. And he was really exciting. We were also, let's get him on loan for the season, get him in longer. And he went back after his month, and I think he played maybe a couple of games for Arsenal in the Cups, and that was about it, really. Had an okay career. I think he went to Palace after that as well. Played a few games there, didn't do much. Tommy Black, a man that we've mentioned a few times in this, along with another one I will mention later on, Jamal Campbell-Rice. I mean, if it's a lower league Southern club, you can probably put your money in it. This lad's probably played for them, hasn't he?
Yeah.
£500 we paid for him. Astonishing.
Was that more or less than your new tumble dryer?
None of your business. So Jamal Campbell-Rice, he's played for pretty much everybody in the lower leagues, and like we said, we paid £500 for him just so Barnett could say that we'd paid a nominal fee. Yeah, that's literally the reason why it was done. It's ridiculous. Canice Carroll, he had a spell there, and like pretty much every other spell he's had, didn't do much. Adrian Clark, we had him on loan from Southend. He was at Arsenal. He does a lot of stuff on Arsenal TV, actually, and I think he did a bit of scouting for Arsenal as well. Miguel Dominguez, less said about him, the better. Max Amer, obviously still doing fairly well at Gillingham, I think, these days. I think he's gone back there. Paul Farman, we obviously famously first saw him at Stevenage in that game that we went to, didn't we? Where that bloke, throughout the whole game, we're just going, the whole second half when he was at our end going, Varane! Literally for the whole second half every time, and it was quite funny by then. It was just like, this is ridiculous, but it is funny.
I think it's the same bloke. Years ago, we had a pre-season friendly, I think it was, at Chester. And while people were shouting stuff, like, this bloke would just make a chicken noise. Just like people would shout stuff and this bloke would go, "Macaw!" Like,
I'm well up for people doing weird stuff like that at games.
well, if it wasn't for Carlisle United, these people would be on the streets on a Saturday afternoon. And
They certainly would. They certainly would. Joe Fryer, he had a spell at Stevenage as well. I mean, still not got a club, has he? It's a shame, not really. It's just a shame that leg break he had for us, because he actually looked like a really decent keeper when we first got him in. Jordan Gibson, didn't realise he had a loan spell there. Played 6 games and scored 1 goal in a half-season loan spell. So I don't know if he had an injury while he was there as well. That might be the reason. So he might have a point to prove this weekend. Ryan Loft, he played, I think, 9 games and didn't score a single goal for Stevenage in a half-season loan spell as well. Harry McCurdy, not an overly successful spell with them. Compared against his other clubs he's been at. Junior Mendes, he was a late 90s loan signing in the 98-99 season. He scored a few goals. I think he was on loan from St Mirren from memory back then. I can't remember exactly when, but decent little player he was. Jennison Murray Williams, obviously sort of hinted to him a minute ago, didn't we? It was always, it's one of those jokes, isn't it? You can always invoke the Jennison Murray Williams rule on this one. Yeah. Chances are, there's 50-50 chance he's played for the opposition we played against. Stephen Schumacher, as Dan has obviously touched on. Harry Worley, one of the one-game wonders. And 2 of the Zeds, I think the 2 only players who've got Zeds in the name, start their surname, who've played for us, have both played for Stevenage. Ofrande Zanzala and the legend himself, Francois Zoko, the great man. Well, okay, Dan. Mike. A bit weird that. Mike, let's go on to the... talking about current Stevenage then. So head-to-head wise, we've got the edge, 10 wins to Stevenage's 8 with 4 draws in the 22 times we've played each other. I don't know about you, Mike. I've always sort of viewed them as a non-league club on loan to the EFL when they've been up.
Definitely.
But I kind of now sort of see them as an established league side. So it's quite ironic, isn't it, that they look more likely than they ever have to drop back down to the non-league, doesn't it? Yeah. They've struggled in recent seasons, haven't they? I think one of the issues they've had is that new stand that was being built when we went. I think that sort of really hamstrung them in terms of what they've been able to do in terms of squad building, and now that's built, I think they're looking to really try and kick on again, but it's just not worked so far, has it? Yeah, they've really struggled. They're very much a club synonymous with Graham Wesley down the years. Always tended to turn back to him when they're in trouble. But they haven't this time, have they?
No.
They've gone for a different man. They've gone for a man who, like Wesley, he's a man generally synonymous with one club, albeit playing a more appealing brand of football, better behaved, and certainly better dressed, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
I can tell you that for definite as well, because I saw Graham Wesley in the neutral end at Fulham v Reading about 7 years ago. I won tickets on that Barclays thing they used to do where you used to be able to win tickets every hour or something. And he was in the neutral end, and the scruffiest looking bloke I've ever seen in my life, like the scruffiest looking tracksuit and jumper. You think that's a Football League manager? What are you doing, idiot? So yeah, we're talking about Paul Tisdale. He took over, I think last week, wasn't it? I think he got the job. They were clearly targeting a decent level of manager, weren't they? Because they were after Steve Evans from Gillingham. So they were basically going all out with their appointment rather than inviting applications and then just picking some bloke you hope might turn out to be good. Yeah. I'm not dropping any hints there. But yeah, I mean, he sort of struggled to carve out a decent career though, hasn't he, since he left Exeter? It's difficult for someone like that though, isn't it? Because he's done such a good job with the Grecians, establishing such a good youth setup there and bringing through players and keeping them, basically building them into a solid club. It's difficult then to replicate that at another club, isn't it?
And I think Stevenage is an odd club for him in a way. Like I can't totally see it being a match made in heaven.
I do wonder though if it's a good club in a sense that it's a club that he can mould himself. He doesn't have to worry about an established setup there and things like that. Something like MK Dons and Bristol Rovers, there was already sort of an established setup there. It's more difficult to impress your ideas, isn't it? Whereas Stevenage, he might look at it as a blank canvas and think, youth setup wise, I can really get this built to something I want it to be. And if I keep them in the league, I've got a chance then to actually mould a club here. A club that's, built a new standing, can hopefully get more fans in playing good football. That's maybe the way he looks at it. I don't know.
True.
But yeah, I think that hopefully that he can get that formula going they had at Exeter and get them up the league. I think that's the aim. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because generally down the years as a club, they've sort of relied on getting players on loan from like Arsenal and Spurs and West Ham, haven't they? And bringing them through or cast-offs from those clubs, and it just doesn't seem to be quite the same now, does it? I mean, a lot of those players stayed in under 23 football for a long time, don't they?
Yeah. Although I think for Tisdale, location-wise, you'll find Stevenage a lot easier to deal with than Exeter was. Yeah,
I mean, he should be able to pick up players from a lot more clubs now, you'd think. You'd think so. Star man, I picked out Scott Cuthbert. I mean, the reason why they've managed to keep themselves just about away from trouble the last few seasons is they've had a really good, strong defence. I mean, Farman kept a lot of clean sheets when he was there as goalkeeper. Last season, I mean, for a team right down near the bottom, their defence was ridiculously good. They weren't like getting battered by a team. I think we were one of the few teams that really battered them last season, weren't we? Most of the games they lost were one goal deficits.
Yeah.
So that's one of the key things to them. And obviously Cuthbert, as a 34-year-old former Swindon, Leyton Orient and Luton defender, he's the club captain there, and he's a big part of the reason why they've done so well defensively. And you'd imagine that they're going to be relying on him heavily again this season to get them out of trouble. In terms of the rest of the squad, I don't know if you've had a chance to look through it, Mike, but I mean, I've picked out Luke Pross's defensive partner as one of the key men as well. I mean, Bruno Andrade, he was a player who did really well at Lincoln and fairly well at Salford. It was quite a surprise he left them, wasn't it, I think, to go Stevenage. He's not quite set the world on fire at Stevenage yet, but he'll no doubt be a threat. And Arthur Reed caused a lot of problems last season in the fixture down there. And, I mean, Jake Taylor as well was quite a big signing from Exeter in the summer, because I think Exeter wanted to keep him, didn't he? And he turned down a deal there.
Well, that's the thing. And they've got Jamie Reid as well, who scored like 32 goals in a season for Torquay in the National League South a couple of years ago.
It didn't work out for him at Mansfield, though, did it? But
No. Yeah. But because for me, on paper, they look pretty solid at the back, and they look like they've got a few players who can get goals. So it's weird that they are where they are in the league, to be honest.
Yeah, they really didn't build on the good second half they had the last season, because last season, I mean, I predicted them, I think, as a dark horse. I seem to remember in the summer, because I thought,
I did as well.
I thought they'll build on what they've done, and they may well, push themselves up the league. But truth is, they've disappointed, if I'm honest. And they've obviously signed a keeper quite recently, Adam Smith, who was on trial with us as well. So maybe they've had some issues at the back there, maybe in terms of goalkeeper. But yeah, like I said, looking for Elliot Lister's another one again who's done really well in the past, and yeah, they're not quite hitting the expectations you'd have for them, are they? I think it's fair to say. Current form wise, they're 17th in the last 6 games, League 2 form table. United are 21st, and their record recently is drawn, lost, won, drawn. So they're unbeaten in the last 3. One of those defeats was a 5-0 loss to Newport County, though. But bar that, I think the other one was quite a narrow defeat. So there you go. I mean, let's touch on United then now, Mike. Injury-wise, it's becoming a bit of an issue, isn't it? Injuries. I mean, we don't want to make too many excuses, but it is something maybe we need to cut a little bit of slack to Millen to, at least. Callum Guy is the latest one who now looks a doubt for this weekend's game. He tried to play on after picking up a knock against Mansfield, but he ended up having to come off in the end, and yeah, it looks like he might well miss this trip as well, possibly. Zach Clough is likely to be unavailable until the new year due to his latest knock, and latest knock is the key thing. He just is not finding any sort of rhythm or form this season, is he? And in terms of signings, he's got to be one of the biggest disappointments we've had for quite a while. Actually, it's quite sad, really, that someone we had such big expectations of as well. Yeah,
definitely. It was the definition of a marquee sign in the summer, wasn't he? And
absolutely,
yeah, like you say. Just disappointing.
Just hasn't worked. So he's likely to be available to the new year, and obviously on top of that, Riley's out with his shoulder injury again. That looks like hopefully not going to be as bad as we expected. I don't think it's as bad as what happened with George Tanner. So hopefully sometime in the new year he'll be back. Lewis Alessandro, we're not sure on that one. We've been told it's sort of a long-term foot injury, haven't we? So I mean, again, he's one actually in a weird way we could really do with someone up front. I genuinely think him playing alongside Fishburne would not be a bad partnership because he'd got a bit of Nelson experience. He'd be really useful to have right now, even if he's not really scored many goals this season. Lucas Jensen again's out with his hand injury, and Josh Dixon as well seems to be still out. One positive, Magnus Norman was fit enough to return to the bench on Tuesday against Mansfield, so he's back available. Is that
a positive though?
He's a decent enough backup keeper, isn't he? I wouldn't want him starting every week probably, but he's solid enough coming in for a few games. So there you go. I mean, what changes do you make, Mike? It's just moving the deck chairs on the Titanic, isn't it? Really?
I think it's been a while since we've left someone out of the matchday squad because we just don't have enough fit players. Can you do?
Lewis Bell's been out quite a few matchday squads. The lad who Holdsworth banged on about how brilliant he is, and he can't make a matchday squad. Yeah, and then the thing is, this is not me having a go at Lewis Bell. This is me saying, why is Holdsworth bigging him up to be something he isn't? If he can't even make the matchday squad, be realistic with what you're saying.
Yeah.
There you go.
But yeah, it's.
I mean, if Guy's not fit, what do you do? Do you? I mean, hopefully Miller's now fit enough to start at the weekend, so that means I suppose you could bump Corey Whelan into midfield. Do you play Corey Whelan and John Mellish? I wouldn't play John Mellish in a midfield too anymore. I just wouldn't. If I was going to do anything, I'd maybe look to go 4-3-3 again. I'd just say, right, let's just pack the midfield. Let's boss the midfield that way, and let's then get it forward and play Sam Fishburne. I'd start Sam Fishburne. I've been on the fence on this one because I don't want to ruin the lad, but he looks our best threat up front.
Yeah,
by a mile. So I'd probably go with. I mean, you keep him back four picks itself. We know what that's going to be. Okay, I'd start Feeney over Whelan as centre back as well. I'd then probably go with midfield three of Whelan, Devine, and Mellish. Just pack it, and then your front three. I'd have Fishburne down the middle, and then probably Gibson on the right, and then one of Dickinson or Abrahams on the left. Probably Dickinson because I think he can whip across in that Fishburne will get on. I'd go with that. I'd go back to 4-3-3 because 4-4-2, it's made us tighter, but it's not giving us any goal threat. It really isn't. And I think playing that with Fishburne, giving Fishburne a bit more freedom to be the front man, could make a difference.
Well, that was the thing the other night as well, wasn't it? Is that we sort of had Fishburne in the box, but we had Gibson on the left cutting in on his right foot and Dickinson on the right cutting in on his left foot. And you want to just be getting crosses into the box.
Yeah. That's what you want. Want. Right, well, I think that's enough of talking about that bit. So let's do the match predictions, Mike. Dan always goes first, and so let's play Dan's. Let's see what Dan has sent in.
Actually thought we didn't play too bad second half at Mansfield. We all know we haven't got the cutting edge yet, but you look at Stevenage, the one place above us, they don't score too many. This is a game we can win, so I'm going to go for 1-0 and for the Fish to finally break his duck and then go on the scoring run he's threatening to.
Okay, so he's going for a 1-0 win at Stevenage. What are you going to go for, Mike?
I'm going to be bold, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 win with John Mellish brace.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think that would be relating on us going to 4-3-3. Or maybe Mellish playing up front. It might be the last. Like I said, we joked about it on the podcast, but it happened. He finally played up front against Mansfield, albeit towards the end when it was very scrappy. And he wasn't really playing up front. He was sort of playing almost just off Fishburne, really. What am I going to go for? I can't see a win. I'm going for a 1-1 draw. I nearly went for 0-0. I'm going to go for 1-1. Try and be a little bit positive. 1-1. Jordan Gibson with the goal. Doesn't really matter, does it? It's another draw, another keeping us down near the bottom. Okay, well, let's move then on to the X-File section, Mike. It's a bit busier than it's been in recent weeks. It's nice to see a few more names in there. One name that seems to be in every single week at the moment, Cole Stockton. He scored in Morecambe's 1-0 win over Bucks in the FA Cup. I don't know if you saw any of the footage from this game, Mike.
No.
But the conditions were appalling, and basically it was live on the BBC. And half the game you couldn't see because the camera was all wet and steamed up. It was ridiculous. Ryan Bowman, I mean, as we've already said, he scored in the 2-1 win over us in the FA Cup, but he also scored in the midweek 2-1 defeat for Shrewsbury at Wigan Athletic. Another game that is appearing quite a bit at the moment, Angelo Balanta, the Colombian, grabbed his 6th goal of the season in Dagenham's 3-2 win over Grimsby Town last weekend. Nick Anderton, he's chipped in with a couple of goals this season already for Bristol Rovers. He grabbed the winner in Bristol Rovers' 2-1 win over Sutton United in the FA Cup. Byron Webster, again, he's getting a few goals now for Bromley, isn't he? He scored a 90th minute win in Bromley's 3-2 win over Wealdstone in the National League. Nathan Buddle, there's a name we haven't heard for a while actually. He scored an own goal for Spennymoor Town in their 2-0 loss at Gloucester City in the National League North. Yes, Gloucester City in the National League North. I'll never ever get over that, how ridiculously the way the cut-off is for National League North because of the number of clubs. What have we got next? Harry McCurdy. He got a consolation goal in Swindon's 4-1 loss at Leyton Orient in midweek. Jack Sowerby, he scored in Northampton's 2-1 win over Exeter City. Exeter have had a really drop off in form, haven't they, since they played us? That game where they beat us, I think they've maybe lost like three games, something like that. I think in that time. Yeah, real drop off.
It's weird for me that Sowerby is playing. Like I thought he was like destined for sort of upper end League One Championship when he was with us, but
never quite worked out, has it? Kedwin Scott, he didn't score in Gateshead's game against Charlton in the FA Cup. He went close a few times, as did Adam Campbell in that game. But he did score in Gateshead's 2-0 win at York City in midweek. Mark Cullen also scored in midweek. He scored in Hartlepool's 2-1 win over Rochdale, which I think was their first win in about 5 or 6 games, actually. So it's a really important one, that, for Hartlepool to get them away from trouble. I think Graham Lee's taken over as manager there, hasn't he? In terms of the other news, we obviously mentioned already that Stephen Schumacher's taken over at Plymouth Argyle. Danny Granger, he's now caretaker manager at Falkirk after Paul Sheeran's departure there. Tommy Wright's been a naughty boy. I think we all knew about that already. He's been banned from all football activity bar coaching for the next 6 years by the FA due to the... I mean, if you want to know about it, Google it. I'm not going to go into the details of it now. And Charlie Barnes, Annan Athletic, he was named in the SPFL Team of the Week. So well done to Charlie. And that's it, Mike. That's it for this week's show. Another bumper one. I think probably about a good 10 minutes of that is me ranting about David Holsworth as usual. So so there you go. But we'll cover him in a lot more depth in our special on the club if he's still in any involvement in the club by then. Yeah. I think thanks once again to our sponsors, the London Branch, for sponsoring the second half of the show this season. Really appreciate that. We'll be back next week with a preview of the Bradford City game. What we're going to do for Christmas, we haven't quite worked out yet because there's 3 games come quite thick and fast, don't they? So we're probably going to do a very least a joint one for Rochdale and Salford. It's whether we do a separate one for the Scunthorpe game as well is the question we're going to ask, isn't it? Because it depends on when we're all available to do that. We'll have to wait and see. Mike, thanks once again for joining me. Thanks everyone for listening. Wrong button. Good start, that one. I'm trying to press the outro button and I press the intro button. It's been a long morning already, isn't it? Thanks everyone for listening, and most importantly, up the Blues.
Up the Blues.